Wonderful. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. It's great to have all of you here. We do have some very exciting things to share with you today. We are going to be starting with some updates on our FIC strategy, our association strategy, and how we're doing with that, as well as some information on what FIC has been doing for you as the industry. So I will actually pass it over to Sarah to take us away on that. And then after Sarah, we are going to go to our friends from CFIB.
So awesome. Sarah, thank you, Trisha. So as we promised, we are driving forward with our strategic plan that we presented back at the beginning of November. If you didn't get a chance to hear about that, please go back to that email, as Trisha did send out a recording of our strategic plan for 2022, which, we have just decided to get a jump start on because we are so excited and passionate about it. So here's a bit of an update as to where we are right now. So as you will all recall, our wildly important goal is to grow to 1,000 business association membership clubs. We are currently at 545 as of the date that we published our strategic plan. I am happy to say that we now, as of December, what is the date? 3rd today, we are now at 622 clubs, and we haven't even started 2022. A huge thank you to Energy Cardio and to 30-Minute HIIT. Again, as we spoke about, bringing these large multi-unit organizations representing every single location is one of the ways that, again, we will continue to gain traction, to gain a voice, and to grow our association. It does matter about the size of our association. It does matter about the funding behind it and our ability to lobby and advocate in Ottawa. That is how we will get the most meaningful change. I also want to mention that, again, our goal for 2022 is to have 3 new affinity partners that are meaningful and strategic to our organization. And we want to welcome 2 affinity partners, Participation and For Global. Trisha has given us a nice little update on For Global. And for those of you who have been watching us on social media and even seen the Participation report card, these are all things that we will be using to continue to get public attention to inactivity and therefore driving people to clubs, as well as using it with the conversations that we have at the provincial and federal level. So good job, everybody. This takes an entire team and an entire industry to achieve. And so just a huge congratulations and thank you to everybody to see us actively growing. And this growth that we're at of 622 clubs, I already know what is in the works for the months of December and January, and this number is going to go like this. So I'm very excited to continue to grow there. So thank you, everyone. And in terms of specifically talking about the strength and the size of our industry and what we have been able to accomplish, again, we may feel sometimes small in relation to other associations, but we are gaining our voice, we are gaining our strength, and we are gaining the ear of the people that we need to. And all of you will remember when I had the opportunity to connect with Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, last year, and to start these conversations and to start building a relationship directly with her office. And that takes time and that took a lot of effort. But one of the things that came out of that is that on October 23rd, when the funding and the subsidy programs were changed and fitness was left out of the sectors that aligned with tourism and hospitality, which is the program that we would want to be in, we took it hard to Freeland's office to really advocate and to ask for the fitness industry to be included, to help the minister understand that we are in a state of crisis. We did that through meetings, through email correspondence. We did that through sending letters and starting campaigns. We put everything that we could into ensuring that the fitness industry was heard. And I am just so pleased. I believe it was last Wednesday, I was working and my phone rang and it was Ottawa, and I thought, well, I don't really know anyone in Ottawa, so I probably won't answer that. But then I was compelled to answer it. And it was Christia Freeland's office phoning me to say, thank you to the fitness industry. Thank you for continuing to put forward the data, the results, the information that was really necessary for them to understand how hard hit our industry was, and that we would actually be included at the same level as tourism and hospitality. And I think that we all have to applaud ourselves because it's a huge win for our industry. It is a financial win, and I know the threshold is 40%, and I'm going to talk about that in a moment. But it's an emotional win for us. It's an emotional win that together we advocated, we were heard, we've built a relationship. And the fact that they phoned me on my personal mobile and they said, you know, we don't usually do this, but we know that this is so meaningful to you and you have shared that passionately, that this is a crucial step for your industry, I think is a huge applause for everyone. So thank you for everyone's support. Thank you for everyone's energy to keep me kind of fighting there. And I'm super grateful that we have been included, but the fight is not over. The threshold is 40%. And we want to continue to work to, you know, have the federal government understand that that 40% is still leaving people on the battlefield without treatment. And we need to make sure that for those of you who are out there that have a very viable business, but now have been cut off from any source of funding, we want to continue to advocate for support. So I actually have a meeting later today in about 2 hours with Freeland's office to specifically talk on this conversation of threshold. So that is today. We're going to keep hitting it. We're going to keep at it. And we're going to be a very strong voice for the fitness industry. And again, this is the beginning. This is an amazing accomplishment that we have made. And Chris Gray, who can't be on our call today, when I phoned him to give him the news, he was absolutely ecstatic. So applause for everyone. And thank you for what we've achieved. Okay, back to you, Trisha. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah, for sharing that news. Very excited for our industry, and we can only go up from here. And it's nice to see that we are coming together to do just that. Next, we have a presentation with our partners from CFIB. We have Jasmine with us, as well as Annie. Jasmine is the Vice President of National Affairs, and Annie is the Director for Provincial Affairs. So I will pass it over to the both of you to take us away.
I guess this is where I was supposed to insert a joke.
Thank you so much, Trisha. Nice to meet you, Sarah, and congratulations on the work that you have been able to accomplish for your organization. We are quite pleased to be with you today. My name is Jasmine. I'm the Vice President of National Affairs with the CFIB, and I'm with my colleague, Annie, who I will ask her to briefly introduce herself. Annie, if you could briefly introduce yourself.
For sure, yes. I'm Annie. I'm the Provincial Affairs Director in 3 different provincial provinces in the West here. So I'm kind of very similar roles and responsibilities as Jasmine. Of course, he is more focused on federal issues. Well, I focus more on the local provincial issues affecting BC, Alberta, and the Prairie provinces. So yeah, super happy to be here. I'm a big passionate supporter of this industry. Fitness is a huge part of my personal life. I love my local gym owner and was absolutely crushed during the lockdowns that we experienced in Alberta, across the entire country. So super happy to be back in the studio these days. Although I'm sure I'm going to get my butt kicked this weekend because there's a little bit of some fun happened in Toronto when the legislative team was all missing. So very eager to get back into shape this weekend. So yeah, I'll let Jasmine start off our presentation here.
Thank you so much, Amy. And so I'm Jasmin. I'm a Vice President of National Affairs with the CFIB. I'm based in Ottawa, and my job is to, among other things, lobby the federal government on behalf of CFIB members. As you can tell with my first name, I'm a French-Canadian, born and raised in Montreal, although I live in Ottawa now. And so still, if you're not sure on how to pronounce my first name, you think about the music jazz and the month of May. So it's a little bit like Jasmin. I was told to tell a joke while putting up the presentation on the screen, but since the session is recorded, I'm going to avoid doing any jokes, so you never know what could happen with those after. But I'm going to present to you a little bit what is the CFIB along with my colleague Annie, and at the end of the presentation, we are obviously available to answer any questions that you might have. As you can see here, CFIB is truly the leading voice for small businesses in Canada. The organization was established in 1971. I was not born. We are a nonpartisan, not-for-profit advocacy organization with 95,000 members. And you can see here on the screen the breakdown by province of all the members that we have. We are in every province. We are in every sector of the economy. And so we are really the voice of small businesses across the country. We're truly grassroots. I will tell you a little bit more about that in a few slides. And we are working on federal and provincial policy issues. Sometimes we will also tackle municipal issues, but mostly federal and provincial policy issues. And so we have people like me and Annie in all provinces throughout the country, and really we take the issues of our member at the provincial and at the federal level on a daily basis. This is what we call the Small Business Recovery Dashboard. This is available online. So if you Google Small Business Recovery Dashboard, or if you Bing Small Business Recovery Dashboard, you will end up seeing the results that I'm showing there on the screen. We update the results monthly, and this is coming from our monthly survey. And I use that in every single meeting I have with politicians. When I sit down with members of parliament, I share with that still today, even though sometimes people have a sense that things are back to normal, not all small businesses are fully open. You can see here that there are many businesses still struggling with staff issues. So only 45% are fully staffed. But where I think where I draw the attention, and I think where we should be drawing more attention, is on the sales level. Only 36% of small businesses in Canada are making normal revenues and normal sales. And so that's one of the reasons why I think the federal relief business programs needs to be still available for businesses who need them for as long as there are restrictions on business and for as long as those programs are needed. In its 50 years of history, CFIB never advocated for business subsidy. This is not what we were doing, but the pandemic has made it completely different, and there's got to be support for businesses out there dealing with the pandemic, dealing with government restriction, dealing with lockdowns, and all that sort of things. And so this is quite an important dashboard here, and it's important to remind politicians that we're not back to normal just yet.
And it's also important to note that although this is showing the national landscape of small businesses across the country, we have the ability to break that down by a provincial level as well. We usually have healthy enough sample sizes that our survey data is very reliable to use on a provincial perspective. So for example, if I were to show this in Alberta, it would read, I believe, 75, 43, and 30%. It's always good to bring that perspective at a more local provincial level, which we are able to do with our survey data.
On the next slide, you will see the level of debt that small business report having because of COVID-19. This is quite concerning. As you can see here, on average, it's $170,000 in COVID-related debt that businesses had to take, and that is just to keep the lights open. Government must really make sure that businesses can grow back their revenue and see future with optimism. And so we have a couple of recommendations to help businesses to deal and to cope with that COVID-related debt. Since the start of the pandemic, we have been quite busy dealing with everything related to COVID-19, and these are some of the numbers that we wanted to share with you today. We have hosted 200 webinars. I'm sure that some of you have called us on our helpline, and so since March 2020, it's almost 140,000 calls that we received from business owner asking our counselors questions related to COVID, government programs, how they can apply. We helped many businesses applying to those programs because they were confused on what to do and what not to do. And so we open our line even to non-members at some point, just because the situation was so dire. But we helped many businesses with those inquiries. We were quite active in the media as well. So many of you, I'm sure, saw us throughout the pandemic giving interviews. Our lead spokesperson, our president, Dan Kelly, appeared regularly on television and radio to talk about the situation of small businesses in Canada, how COVID programs were important, what would be the best policy to put in place to help small businesses throughout COVID. And still today, we publish regularly press releases. We give interviews on a daily basis, either at the provincial or at the federal level. And here you have a bit of some stats on the number of impressions on social media and the number of people who visited the website. We truly became the source of information also for media when they were looking to better understand the state of small businesses in Canada. And so CFIB lobbies on behalf of small business. And this is how we do lobbying. First, what I want to mention is that we have regular surveys with our member, and the position that we take on issues are based on our survey results. So we have monthly survey where we have about 3,000, 4,000, or 5,000 responses. I want to note that at the beginning of the pandemic, we had survey with 8, 9, and 10,000 respondents. And I even saw a survey about CRA with 12,000 responses. So when we meet politicians, they see a credible organization with credible results, highlighting the reality of small businesses and proposing solution that business owner would like to see implemented. And really, these surveys set the recommendations that we put forward. So it's not like me and Annie, we have a meeting in the morning and we're like, what are we going to say? What are we going to ask today? But it's really the survey that we send out, the results that we are getting, that is setting the recommendations that we are putting forward in front of policy makers. Do you want to add anything to that, Annie, or?
No, I think that, yeah, that pretty much covers all that. And I have to say, if during this pandemic, I have to say, I mean, there's no other business association that was presenting real-time feedback to government on the state of small businesses and the type of federal and provincial support programs that were needed or perhaps needed improvement. I mean, our survey data was almost the trusted source for governments across Canada to get an accurate read of what was going on the ground floor as it related to the pandemic. So I know Jesme can attest to how that worked at the federal level, and I have to say it was quite influential at the provincial level as well. And it really was because we had this amazing survey research capabilities that were already built into the CFIB that we were able to quickly pivot. And at the start of the pandemic, we were surveying our members bi-weekly. We are now moved to a monthly basis. But again, that real-time feedback directly from our members was quite influential throughout, and continues to be influential throughout the pandemic here.
And that's a good point that Annie is making. When the pandemic started, we were having weekly survey, and really no other organization had the information that CFIB had. And it was quite helpful for the government to try to set up those programs in order to help businesses, because Statistic Canada was not able to go as fast as we were. No other organization were able to go as fast as we were with that many responses. And so it was quite helpful for members to provide information to members of parliament, but it was also very useful for members of parliaments to help craft the policy that we saw put in place during the pandemic. We are also sending emails and letters, as Sarah mentioned in her own introduction comments. These type of communications are quite important. Being on record is important. Sending those written communication is important. A letter is a bit old school, some would say, but they cannot just not answer your letter. They have to read it, they have to answer it, they have to get back to you and say what they think about your proposal. The same thing with an email, right? You send an email. Sarah was mentioning that she's having a call this afternoon with the Office of the Deputy Prime Minister. We're putting the final touch to a letter that we will be sending to all MPs today in the context of the Bill C-2 second reading debate that is currently happening in the House of Commons. And so they will receive that, they will read it. And so those written communication are so important to make sure that those recommendations, the recommendations that we are making are known by members of parliament, but also they have to say something about it. And so in addition of emails and letters, obviously we are meeting with members of parliament, both at the federal level, provincial level, staffers, civil servants. Since the election, we met MPs from all parties. We had a meeting with Mary Ng, the small business minister. We had a few calls with Chrystia Freeland, the finance minister. We also met with the Conservative Party critic for small business. We also met with the NDP critic for small business. And we met with the Bloc Québécois critic for small business, where I had the pleasure to practice my French. But in a minority government, all MPs have their say, right? So if the NDP, if the Bloc Québécois, if the Conservative are pushing the government in a direction, and if those MPs from the oppositions are aligned with our recommendation, they believe we are putting forward good ideas to help small businesses, well, they will put the pressure on government to make the changes in the context of the current bill. And so we are meeting with MPs from all parties to make sure that they ask the questions and they push the government in a certain direction. Not only that, but we are also meeting with members of the government that are not minister, but they can within the party mention to their colleagues why some of the changes that we are recommending should be made within the context of Bill C-2. So meeting all MPs is quite important. Obviously, we cannot meet all of them before Christmas. It's just impossible, but we are meeting a lot. Before the election, it was the same thing, a minority government. And so, we met with the leader of the Conservative Party twice and some senior member of his caucus. We met the leader of the NDP and some senior member of his caucus. We did not meet with the leader of the Bloc Québécois, but we had a very lengthy presentation at their economic caucus, and I met with different MPs on occasion. We met with Chrystia Freeland, we met with Carla Quattro, we met with Mélanie Joly, we met with Sean Fraser, Rachel Ben-Dayan, a whole bunch of ministers and also a parliamentary secretary within the government. It's also important to meet with chief of staff. And so we had a couple of meetings with the different chief of staffs. And I would not, I think it's important also to mention all the committee presentations that we are making. That's an important tool in our lobbying toolkit. As you know, when bills are introduced in the House of Commons, at some point they have to be studied by different committees, and that's when you really have a chance to influence the course of action. Obviously, you can influence the course of action at any point in time before the bill is introduced, when it's debated at the House and so on. But committee presentations are a key moment in the life cycle of a bill before it receives a royal assent. And so last year, in the last parliament, I should say, we were invited at the committee on Bill C-208. This is the bill that created a uniform tax treatment, whether you sell your business to a kid or to an unrelated person. Because before that bill, if you were selling your business to your kid, you would pay more taxes. And so it would be more costly to keep the business in the family. It's quite unbelievable that it was the case, but it was the case. And so we fought hard for almost 10 years to see that law change, and it was changed in the last parliament. And we were at the House of Commons committee hearing, and we were at the Senate committee hearing on that bill to make our point. And this is really important to be in those committees. We were at many other committees, Bill C-206, the $15 minimum wage, and others. And so we're quite involved in those. And you know, I lobby CFIB all the time to be invited in those committees. When we are on a bill, I always write somewhere, or I always say to someone, like, we are available to go to committee. We are available to go to committee, because the floor is ours. We talk, they ask the question, but it's really a good opportunity to make the case about what we want to see on those different bills moving forward. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is how we lobby through media. Obviously, you know, adding a layer of public pressure on politicians is quite important. Just today, if you read the Hill Time, there's someone from the CFIB with a French-speaking name who was interviewed just yesterday on the government bill C-3, and I'm knocking down that bill like there's no tomorrow. And really, that's adding a pressure on government to make sure that at least they consult with us. And so they will read the Hill Time. Well, they have already read the Hill Time by this time, I'm sure. And they will see that we are quite unhappy about this bill. They will read that we want to talk to the minister. They will read that we want to be invited to share a concern. And I'm almost certain that the phone will ring soon. And so, you know, lobbying through media is quite an effective tool as well to get your message across. Anything that you want to add, Annie? I feel like I'm talking a lot here, but
no, I think you gave a pretty good summary, Jesme.
Good, perfect. Right after the election, we asked CFIB members to let us know how the federal government could best support their business. And I want to come back to that, to the survey part of my presentation, to say how quick we can be to send those survey out. So right after the election, we had a couple of questions and statements ready for our members, and you can see here some of the results. The cost of doing business, EI system, and shortage of labor are, you know, really a top priority. But you can see here the federal rent and wage subsidy for businesses is quite an important way that businesses see that would best support them. And it's 36% for all members, but if you look into the hardest hit sector, so the arts and recreation, where, you know, your industry is in, and hospitality, it jumps to 68 and 65% respectively. When we broke down the results, we knew that the way the federal government presented the programs that would follow what was in place before October did not fit the bill entirely. It was really important for us to make sure that the federal government was aware of the gaps in the current programs that they are putting in place and what they should be doing about it. And so, obviously, Bill C-2, which Sarah has mentioned early on in our presentation, has been introduced last week. And when the bill was introduced, it included the list of the type of businesses that would be covered by this program, and we were quite pleased actually to see gyms to be included in that list. It was something that we were saying in many interviews. It was something that we were saying in press releases and so on, and meetings with politicians, that the list needed to be shared, and also that gym needed to be included, as well as other business, but gym needed to be included, and there was no reason why revenue loss for gyms would not be considered as important as revenue loss for businesses in other sector. And we use gym as an example in many of our interviews. So Bill C-2 was introduced. We were quite pleased to see gyms included in that list, as well as other businesses in other sectors. But it's really not enough. And I'm pleased with what I heard from you, Sarah, at the beginning of the presentation, that we can really see here that our recommendations are really aligned, and because it's important that we say more or less the same thing, so that it's more effective that way, right? And so the thresholds are way too high still. The tourism and hospitality program, for which now gyms are included, the threshold to access this program is 40%. The hardest hit business recovery program, the threshold to access that program is 50%. So for many businesses who are still not making a lot of sales, who are still even losing money every day they are open, for those businesses, if they don't meet that threshold, they don't have access to any of the program. And so what we are asking is to set the bar at 10%. 10% is the threshold to access the Canada Recovery Hiring Program. If it's good for that program, why should it not be good for the other programs? And so we're putting that recommendation in every single communications that we have with government. We also want to see the raise. We also want to raise the wage and rent subsidy level for all businesses using the same formula as the tourism and hospitality program. So it's quite unfair if you are in the tourism program, you have a revenue loss of 40%, you have a subsidy of 40%. If you have a revenue loss of 50% as part of the hardest hit program, you only have a subsidy of 10%. So there's no reason why there should be a different way the subsidy is being calculated. And so 1% revenue loss should equal 1% subsidy. And the last thing that I want to mention, and I'm sure that many of your members, Sarah, have applied and received the CEBA loan. It was quite a popular program until it ended this past summer. In order to benefit from the forgivable portion of the CEBA loan, you have to repay the loan at the end of next year. When COVID started last year in the spring, December 2022 seemed like a far away date on the horizon, and we all thought that the pandemic would last, a month, and that it would all be over rapidly. But we are now 19 or 20 months into the pandemic. I have stopped counting, and repaying that loan is December of next year. And many businesses are not in a position yet to start repaying that loan. And if you don't repay it by the end of next year, you don't have access to the forgivable portion, and you start paying interest on that loan. already for businesses who have, had to take on a lot of debt because of COVID-19. And so the smart thing to do for government is to to push back that repayment deadline until the end of 2024, so that businesses have more time to go back on their feet, generate the revenue that they need to generate to start growing back the business again, and have more money to repay those loans and have access to the forgivable portion. Before leaving the floor to Annie, for her to share some of the provincial priorities, other priorities at the federal level that are quite important for all of you are related to the cost of doing business. So for example, CPP will increase on January 1st. Who think that increasing taxes at this time is a good idea? Not a lot of people think that, right? But the government has not changed its plan, and CPP will increase as of January 1st. And so we're saying out loud how bad this is of an idea. Shortage of labor is hitting all sectors in all provinces. And so we need both the provincial and federal government needs to do something about it. There are many different solutions, including, having a faster and better immigration system that would bring workers in more rapidly. Employment insurance. Just yesterday, I was speaking with the minister office on some of the changes that they want to make on employment insurance. We have published a report. We have published a submission. We'll be part of the roundtable with the minister next week. If plans don't change, I'm going to meet the minister 3 times in the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to have the opportunity to share with her a few times, the priorities of our member. And red tape is always a concern for all of us, and we are recommending quite a bit on reducing red tape. So I hope I was clear enough. If not, I remain available to answer any questions that you might have. But I'm going to leave the floor now to Annie to share with you some provincial priorities.
For sure, yeah. So I have the great pleasure, I guess, seeing the perspective from 3 different provinces. So this is fresh new results from our November survey that is really going to be forming our pre-budget recommendations across all provinces. Of course, it all depends on the province and specific asks that provincial leads like myself in Ontario or Atlantic Canada will use. But the overall theme we are presenting to governments as we head to pre-budget, and I bring this up is because just on Tuesday, Alberta, we're invited to present directly to Alberta Treasury Board and Finance our pre-budget submission and our pre-budget recommendations, which of course was largely formed from the slide you see here and the recommendations of that submission. And I got the great pleasure to present with our CEO, Dan Kelly, who's always fun to lobby with, that's for sure. So yeah, this is pretty much on a provincial scale, our focus. Each province has a different budget day, but in Alberta, for example, we have fixed budget dates. So our budget will be coming at the end of February. Very similar to the federal level, ensuring fair taxation for small businesses, not increasing costs, reducing red tape on businesses, the size of the public administration. We always raise that because, as the public service gets more expensive, bigger, usually what that translates to is taxation for small businesses. And I bring it up is because I'm pretty vocal and quite present on the municipal level in Alberta, as well as are my colleagues on the provincial level as well. So right now, and I think I saw Scott as a participant, but of course, just last week or the last couple of weeks, we had budgets from our 2 largest municipalities in Alberta, Edmonton and Calgary, and unfortunately, both municipalities are proceeding with a property tax increase. What that translates to in Calgary, for example, is businesses in the retail sector might be dealt with a 10% property tax increase in the new year. Huge cost increase right now for small businesses at a time when they can least afford it. So if you go to the next slide, and Jasmine. These are kind of just our broad, I guess, recommendations to provincial governments. Of course, this changes based on the province that you are in. For example, one of our recommendations in Alberta right now is reducing the small business income tax rate from 2% to 0%. A very similar proposal or what Saskatchewan is doing right now. And that was a big focus on our conversations on Tuesday when we presented to Treasury Board as a means to help a small business with economic recovery going forward. So these again are very general, recommendations to provincial governments. But like I said, each province would curtail this to their own provincial landscape. For example, in BC, one of their big focuses would be providing offset cost measures for the provincial government's 5-day employer paid sick days that are also coming into effect on January 1st, 2022. That's kind of the landscape we are looking at provincially. I could also go very deep into the municipal issues as well. I always like to poke the bear with municipalities a little bit, but we are in a position in Alberta to work with new councils because we had our municipal elections in the fall here, and just believe on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. We will be meeting with the new mayor in Calgary, that is Mayor Jyoti Gondek. I think someone just mentioned, municipal issues are certainly rearing their head in Alberta here, and we presented our submissions both to Edmonton and Calgary, and to speak about that survey response rate, we are actually able to do large center municipal breakouts on some of our data. So the submissions we actually sent to Calgary and Edmonton on our budget were all from our Edmonton and Calgary members. We're very fortunate in the province of Alberta here to be able to have a healthy enough sample size of our data to use that and break it down on a municipal level. So again, I'm pretty sure CFIB is probably one of the only organizations that is able to do that, to get to the very, very local issues that matter most to small businesses and present that to municipalities.
So Annie and I are available if there are any questions. I'm not sure how Trisha and Sarah, you want to do this, but if anyone has a question, I'll try to answer them as good as I can.
Wonderful, thank you. And thank you for the presentation. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or speak up or put it in the chat. I see Jill has a question here.
Annie, it's always great to see you. We sure appreciate your voice and your advocacy here in Alberta. I'm with Dance Safe Alberta and Dance Safe Canada, and have a dance studio here in Calgary. And I just want to leave her off of that point on the municipal advocacy. Do you have, because I'm reading that, and I think this is going to be something that we see perpetuate for our other members across Alberta, like we're feeling the pinch first here, but you're mentioning Edmonton and other major centers. Do you have the opportunity to present this sort of information to a municipal government for them? Because what I'm reading about the Calgary one, for example, is that this was initiated in chamber, like by the councillors. It was not recommended by their departments. So that's kind of a new.
We do. For example, we sit on the Business Advisory Council committee within Calgary City Council. So through that committee, the CFIB sits on it as the rep, as well as, for example, the Calgary Chamber of Commerce, some local business owners, and as well, I think the Business Council of Alberta. And then through that committee is also chaired by 2 councillors as a chair and co-chair. But yeah, it definitely caught us off on guard, and why I was pretty harsh in my media comments that Calgary City Council went into that meeting with a recommendation from administration to only do a 1% tax increase. I didn't get a chance to watch all of the debates, but from what I heard from reporters was basically they rubber stamped everything, which is so annoying. I mean, for example, they approved up close to 20 new hires to study climate mitigation in Calgary. So yeah, we are definitely going to be holding them to account. It's going to be very, very important next year as well, is because they will be establishing its next 4-year budget. So we are ending our 4-year budget cycle currently with council's vote last week or the week before. And then next council committee will set another 4-year kind of budget goal, where we feel that, of course, property taxes need to be front and center on that, as well as reducing the size of the public service, not increasing the size of the public service, and really bringing that voice from small businesses. As also, we're going to be really focusing on municipal red tape for business owners. That's going to be the focus of my meeting next week with Mayor Gondek's office. That, you know, municipal red tape is an easy win for council right now. It is a way to help with economic recovery and can largely be low cost to the city. So yeah, and it's pretty much ditto to the city of Edmonton as well. Every year we also do a municipal watch report that looks at the spending and hiring trends of councils, not councils, but the 17 largest municipalities in Alberta. And then we send that report, as always, to those municipalities. So yeah, lots of fun stuff on the municipal front. I like it. I love local politics like that. So it's always a little bit of a passion of mine and always gets me fired up.
Well, I'm sure grateful it does. Thanks for your work.
Thank you. Deanna, you had a question to ask.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I do. Has there been any talk in helping small businesses with the ports being so backed up? I know most of you don't have maybe product that's necessary in your sales of new memberships, whereas we do. We offer gloves and wraps. We've had to fly in at a very high cost product a few times now, spending tens of thousands of dollars. So is there any talk provincially, federally for what's happening with the ports being so backed up and us not receiving product?
Yes, that's a good question. Maybe I can start, Annie, and if you want to add anything after, but first, it is an issue that we are monitoring quite regularly. It's quite concerning to see all the issues related to supply chain and the cost of different products and so on. We were quite involved some time ago when the strike happened at the Port of Montreal. There was a law that was passed by the then Minister of Labor, Philomena Tassi, to force the longshoremen back to work. And so we were quite involved in that issue with the Port of Montreal and other stakeholder groups. And what we are currently doing with the situation in Vancouver, where we have read that some trucker group might go on strike. So what we are doing is we're monitoring the situation and see what is happening on a daily basis. We want to make sure that we are ready to speak out loud and talk to politicians should the situation get even worse. And I say that, I know it's already not easy, but we want to make sure that those responsible for the ports and transport by rail and plane are aware of what businesses are saying, are aware of what businesses are going through, and are doing the things that they should be doing in order to ease the situation. So if needed, obviously we're going to release, we're going to send out press releases, and we're going to do everything that it is necessary to do. Just last week, we sent out a press release asking governments to not increase taxes on the shoulder of small businesses who are already struggling with small supply chain cost. And so thanks for the question. Very good question, and we're monitoring the situation regularly.
Just so you know, there's talk today that the Port Authority is going to go on strike here in Vancouver at Christmas, which is the last thing that we need. We need I mean, just if you look outside, I can see the bay. It's full of huge containers full, and we need our product. And it could wreck my business. I'm telling you, it could be catastrophic. So we do need some government support when it comes to getting product off those ships. 100%. There has to be a circuit breaker, something to help our locations.
Thank you for that, and really important things to consider moving forward. And Evelyn, you have one question that we will end our conversation with today.
Thank you very much. Jasper, you will recognize the accent.
Yes.
It's coming from your place.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
So the question for me is that, is there any discussion concerning investment in technology? Because we try to have some support with the technology, because obviously we had to invest in technology for virtual to be able to continue to serve our client and to develop a new services, because obviously there is a lot of people right now that is still working out a virtual system. And it seems that there is nothing like that, because it's an investment. We're not a technology company. We cannot have any subsidized for that. But in our case, when I say our, it's not personal case, it's in our business. A lot of us had to invest in technology just to survive. So, and I tried to knock at different door, and there is no answer about that. So do you know if there is any possibilities about that, or if there is ever any conversation about that type of support for our industry?
That's a very good question, Evelyn. And just on that, we have sent a letter 2 weeks ago to Minister Champagne, who is the minister responsible for innovation, industry Canada. And we have written in the letter that too often innovation programs are designed through the lens of big businesses, right? And we're asking for a meeting, and what we want is department to put in place is some innovation programs that will be more adapted to the reality of small business. Now, this will not happen tomorrow morning, but we're planning to have a series of meetings to really make sure that they understand the need that small businesses also need to be part of the conversation when we're talking about innovation and have access to all sorts of resources.
Yeah, because the answer that I had was that we have to adapt to the situation. I say it's really, really cool, but adaptation means using technology. Technology is investment. So it's easy to say, hey, you just have to adapt, but when you have to change your model, it's not just adapt. It's like I need to change completely my model. It's almost not the same business. Actually, now we have two businesses, the gym and the virtual. So just to see if there is possibility, because that would help, and that would be possible then to develop even better and to be able to save the gym, because you have some money that comes in from another source, but that source, we are limited the way we can develop it because we are limited the way the money we have. So thank you very much, Jasmin.
Merci beaucoup. And if any of you would like to, if any of you have questions that you think I could provide some answer to, you saw my email address at the end of the presentation. So don't be shy, send me an email if you have any question about what we are doing at CFIB, and I'll be more than happy to answer you in a timely manner.
Wonderful. And I know that I will send out your emails as well in my follow-up email out to everybody so that they have access to it. I see, Amber, you also have your hand up for a question.
Yes, thank you. I just have a question. If there's anything, if you guys have heard anything about any support for new businesses. I own 2 gyms and a photography company, and our one gym, we've been open for 8 years, but we were closed for 8 months in our province. I'm in Manitoba. So we were quite hard hit here of 8 months of closures, but our other gym was to open right before the pandemic. So right before closure. So that delayed us almost a year of opening. And we're wondering, there isn't any financial support out there. I also work with Futurepreneur Canada and mentor new entrepreneurs, and there's no support for businesses that either were about to open during the pandemic, opened during it. Like our business was already in place before, but because we had to delay it due to all the closures for fitness, we couldn't get the doors open until they relaxed some of the mandates here. But there's no financial support for us for those losses. Anything that you've heard of or advocating for new businesses or somebody who was supposed to open prior to?
The fact that new business are not eligible for the major federal business relief program is one of the greatest unfairness happening right now. This is incredibly unfair, and I don't know how many letters and press releases and communications in which we said it. 2 weeks ago, we sent another letter on new business to Minister Freeland. It was in our press release, in our most recent press release. It's still in our letter that we are about to send today. We have sent a couple of letters just on that to Minister Freeland since the beginning of the pandemic. On May 19, 2020, Justin Trudeau said himself during a press conference that they would find a solution for new business, but they have yet to come with anything. I believe I say that in all of our meetings with finance. This is so unfair. We even had a webinar with Minister Freeland where we asked about new business, and they have not done anything yet. We're not going to give up. We're going to continue to ask. There are alternative ways for government to calculate revenue loss. There are alternative ways for businesses to estimate revenue loss because of the pandemic for businesses that don't have a track record. It is especially true for the businesses that made the investment to open just before the pandemic started. And so we're not gonna quit. Obviously, we don't know what will happen, but we don't control what we don't control, but what we control is our ask week after week to government in a way or another to include new business. You should also, so that's what we are doing on the lobbying front. As I said, it's so unfair for new businesses, and we are saying it as often as we can to government to see changes being implemented. And Bill C-2, the current government bill that is right now at the House of Commons, is an opportunity to change that. And so in our communication with government, we keep asking them to find a way to include new business. And the last thing I want to mention on that is that there is a program through the Regional Development Agency of Canada. And so there is one agency for Western Canada. There are 2 agencies in Ontario, 1 in Quebec. Anyway, there are 7 agencies throughout Canada. There's one program is called the Growth Fund, I think the name of the program is, but they are giving money to businesses to help them, and a portion of those funds are set aside for new businesses. And so maybe this is something that you want to see if you could be eligible. Now it's quite restrictive in terms of the type of businesses and the type of project that is eligible through that program. But yeah, the name of the program is Jobs and Growth Fund, and some money is set aside for new business. I don't know if your business would qualify. I don't know if the project that you would submit would qualify, but you should be looking that up.
Okay, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for your time and all of your support that you have been giving FIC. Thank you, CFIB, for presenting here today and providing us with a wealth of information. If anybody has any more questions, please feel free to take it offline. I will send out email addresses so that we can all stay connected. With that, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Friday and a great weekend. Thanks, everyone.